Hello everyone, welcome to Midweek Gaming. I'm Nico inside of the comms. Of course, Justin. This week will be Destiny themed. Now, don't click off. Don't click off. I know just saying that in some
Please
circles
don't
is going
run
to immediately.
away.
I know saying that in certain circles is immediately going to drop my view count. In fact, I'm pretty sure this is probably going to do terrible. But in fairness, this is actually me kind of responding to something I said a very long time ago. Now, if you're not aware, let me just give you some starter information. Recently, Destiny has had the big reveal, dev stream, ViDoc, whatever the heck they're calling it, ViDoc it is, of Destiny 2 Renegades, which is the big Star Wars thing that everyone very much collectively lost some part of their soul
both
over.
iffy and okay and excited and not excited about. Everyone is just somewhere around that spectrum on that.
Yeah, depending on who you ask in this community, Renegades is either going to incite a lot of excitement or a lot of anger, and there's not really a middle ground. I want to see if I can draw the middle ground.
Here.
Yeah, I want to see if I can't draw into the middle ground a little bit here, because back when this was first revealed, I myself was not very confident about it. I think I even said that way back when. There's a video of us saying it. And I basically said, you know what? It was probably something done, just thrown together by the marketing team. You know, the marketing team sometimes isn't, given the most information, and they just kind of threw together from the little information they got, which was probably just, we're doing a Destiny expansion, it's licensed with LucasArts, so make it very Star Wars-esque, and that's kind of where they went with it, yeah? I basically said at that, let's wait until there's more information, a big reveal, until we actually see some hard, concrete, gameplay, concepts, yada yada, until we finally pass judgment, because it's pretty unfair, in my opinion, to just condemn an entire expansion project, whatever, based on what little information the marketing team had and thus thrown together with an expansion. Or the trailer thrown together by the marketing team with what little information they were given. Which is basically just a reveal.
Yes.
So, here we are, several months later, with the ViDoc. And now you're going to get me more solid opinion on it. And to make a long story short, let me expound on that, yeah? I have seen it, not entirely, full disclosure. I don't think I've seen the Ash and Iron bits, but I've seen all the Renegade stuff. Justin has also seen it.
Yep.
He is free to give his opinions. We will be giving our opinions.
We are giving opinions here.
I laugh at the part that I'm saying you're
this
free.
is going to be opinions.
Yeah, there's gonna be opinions. I just laugh at the fact that I say you're free to give your opinions. That did not sound right.
You can have an opinion here.
You can have an opinion. Maybe. But the thing is, right? At the end of the day, I'm gonna say that it doesn't actually look too bad. This can be, as I said to Justin before the show, way worse. This could have been a way worse thing. Now, on the other side of that coin, you could also say that there is, if you really want to be a cynic here, which is not entirely unwarranted, if I'm being honest, the level of creative bankruptcy here. Because, as a person put it, I think even on Bungie's own dev stream, they're getting better at their craft. Instead of just outright aping art and stealing it, they're just getting the rights to it and calling it inspired by.
Or just remaking things that they've already remade.
Yeah, because some people have pointed out that this is kind of one-to-one, kind of a Star Wars-esque story. There's a lot of heavy-handed Star Wars themes here, which, to be fair, is to be expected from a crossover, but that's kind of where people draw the issue, right? This whole thing, again, on the cynical level, some people would argue wouldn't really exist if not for how Bungie looked at the metrics of their previous Star Wars crossover event with the skins in Eververse, which is a whole other can of worms, and saw those numbers and said, we can milk this. Don't get me wrong. There are people, Bife specifically will probably die on this hill, where he will say that, and in fairness, I have too, where people, way back in the beginning when Stormtrance came out, I think in arguably D1, is Stormtrance a D1 or D2 thing? I think it's D1, that came out in Taken King. When that first came out, I know, it might be D2. It's been out too long. But anyways, when Stormtrance first came out, it's very much the Emperor Palpatine Force Lightning shtick, right? The unlimited power meme. Insert that here.
Yes.
So there's definitely. You haven't seen that before. Just go look at it. You'll know instantly if you know the move, and you'll see the connective tissue.
You'll know.
you'll see the connective tissue. And so, in fairness, there has certainly been some Star Wars-esque feelings to Destiny for a long time, and some people would argue that Star Wars has influenced Destiny to some degree already. I would retort that Destiny has influenced pretty much all sci-fis after it came to be, to some degree or another, but again, that's neither here nor there. The point is that there is definitely a lot of connective tissue in general just between Destiny and Star Wars, so the idea of a Star Wars themed expansion isn't entirely out of left field in and of itself. I do believe that there is some merit to be made on, it was just made because it's something that would definitely be cool for Destiny. But like I said, on the cynical level, yeah, I can't entirely discount the people who say that, if not for those skin sales, this might not have existed. There's definitely some conversation to be made. This definitely impacted the decision, I would say. It's definitely part of the reason Renegades exist. So, overall, though, the story doesn't look that bad. Spoiler, we're going to be talking about a bit of the story for the, Destiny 2 Renegades expansion, so if you haven't...
Future and all that, so yeah.
Yeah, so if you haven't seen the expansion or you want to go cold turkey, leave
now.
Leave now. This is actually the one time I will tolerate a low subscriber count, because you never know. Or, not subscriber count. Not subscriber count. View count.
Don't unsubscribe.
Don't unsubscribe, please. This is one time I will tolerate a low view count because, again, if people don't want to hear anything about Renegades because, they want to go cold turkey into this expansion, that's completely fine. That's a fair take. I can definitely see people wanting to do that. So leave now if that's your jazz. But for those of you who are fine, let's continue. This basically tells us the story of the Barrett Imperium and their rise to power. The Barrett Imperium is, as far as we can tell from what Bungie has told us, an offshoot of Keitel's own Cabal Ascendancy. I'm starting to think she brought more people than clearly she brought more people than we're seeing, but the more offshoots I'm seeing, the more I'm starting to wonder just how big the force Keitel brought with her is. Because apparently she had enough forces to fund a small Imperium-sized offshoot, but, whatever. I say fun, but reality, they are their own thing. They have left the Ascendancy for reasons unknown to us at the moment, possibly due to their own dissatisfaction with how Keitel is with the Coalition, or maybe toward a bottle, who knows.
Who knows?
But suffice to say, they are their own shtick. That is an offshoot of Keitel's forces. They've got a heavy-handed Imperium aesthetic to them, or they've got a definitely Imperium aesthetic to them. Their Cabal forces have an almost Stormtrooper-like look to them, which really answers the question of what happens if a Stormtrooper went to the gym. It's terrifying.
What Stormtroopers look like if they were actually random aliens instead of just the humans.
Yeah, what happens if the Imperium actually recruited aliens and was not all just human soldiers? They look pretty intimidating, not gonna lie, the actual troopers themselves. And the idea here is that they've had this very rapid rise, and it feels very unnatural, right? And, Drifter has kind of gone to the people of the city and is like, hey, they're rising, it's not good, they're rising really fast, which also feels really weird. But the city is like, nah, not really our problem. We've got grander ambitions, grander plans. Which some people would say feels a bit weird. Some people say this is the result of the death of 3. But again, there's also the plot hole you could say of Ikora has a metric ton of a spy network across the system. There's no way she hasn't noticed this.
She probably knows.
But, plot holes aside, there's the whole conversation of she wanting to get the Praxic Order involved. We'll get to them. They're involved in this. But anyways, going back to the Barrett Imperium, they are kind of very likely led by an individual known as Dredgen Bale. Dredgen Bale? Dredgen Bale or Dredgen Vale? Whatever. The dude with the mask you'll see if you look at the ViDocs. Kind of has a heavy Revan inspiration, as also Life pointed out, which, yeah, that's fair. I like that aesthetic, if nothing else. And he apparently is very much the one leading this, or bankrolling this, or one of the key supporters of this by the sounds of it, and they're building this giant super weapon. We see concept for this in the ViDoc. It's this kind of tower-looking thing. Has an almost Death Star look to it, which again, it's a crossover with Star Wars, it's to be expected. And all in all, though, that's kind of the whole shtick. So, the point of this is that we're going to go into the criminal underworld, and we're basically going to fight the Barrett Imperium and kind of defeat them. Also, side note, the Praxics are involved. Now, this is kind of where we go into our Jedi and Sith analogs. As I mentioned, there is a whole new Dredgen, which I talked about before. He is the Sith Lord equivalent here. And he is the one, like I said, majorly supporting the Baron Imperium. As for the actual other side of the coin, the Jedi analog, we have the Praxic Order. For some reason. This is kind of where I have the biggest gripe. And from what I can gather, a lot of people have the big gripe because the Praxics don't really feel like the Jedi. Especially if you know what the Praxics are like. If you don't, let me give you a quick rundown. The Praxics are basically Destiny's Inquisition. And they will kill unalive. Well, said it already. Anything that doesn't pass
anything that does not follow the light.
Yeah, they are very, very analog. Light is good, dark is evil. Now you're probably sitting there, if you know the lore, thinking, wait, isn't there like 10 years of lore that discount that theory, or at the very least call that into question? Yes, you're right. The Praxics just don't care. They are very much... Yeah, they're very much your religious zealot group to a degree, I would argue. And so they have even stated in recent lore, when I'm guessing Ikora contacted them to look into the Baron Imperium, that they have no interest. They are only really interested in fighting the darkness and its forces, and they have even basically stated that they have no interest in defending the city or even humanity, which, yeah, that doesn't scream of zealotry at all. So yeah, they're apparently our Jedi analog. You can probably hear by the tone of voice, as well as what I'm telling you, why I have problems with that. We're taking the legendary defenders of peace.
Nick is going and telling you through the tone of his voice how he feels.
We're taking the defenders of peace and harmony of the Jedi and basically giving them the equivalent and destiny of the Inquisition.
If arguably, you know what the Inquisitors are like during the Empire's reign in Star Wars, you kind of have an idea on what they're like here in Destiny.
Yeah, and arguably, I would say an even closer amalgam to Inquisitors would be, and this is me going off topic to a whole different universe. Anyone knows Warhammer 40k? Yeah, those Inquisitors. Yeah, that's basically what the Praxic Order is. That's what the Praxic Order is. The people who have the authority to unalive anyone who doesn't pass the sniff test. And I do mean anybody. So, yeah. Not exactly what I would consider the Jedi amalgam here, but anyways. I mean, the narrative lead, Alison Lure, did say that we'll be able to kind of poke at their idea that light is good and dark is evil a bit. So maybe we'll be able to mess with them that way. Anyways, we'll see. We do know one thing, and that is that they all have the thing called the Praxic Blade, and that is the Star Wars, or Destiny, I should say, equivalent for the lightsaber. I want to say, judging by what little we've seen of it so far, that we see it almost ribbing to the actual handle, which feels very similar to War Beast ribbing. Maybe there's some Cabal tech in there, because it feels like this is a new invention, because it feels like we would have heard of this till now, you know? It could be a case of just retcon something they threw into the lore to explain the Praxics in Star Wars and blah, 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 blah. I just want to lean on the side that it feels more new, just by the ribbing, but that's just me spitballing.
Yeah, we can't really tell for sure on that one, but it does feel new. Like, a lightsaber feels like something that could very much be made by, like, Clovis or literally any other major weapon-based faction in Destiny. But, at the same time, who would have made it?
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Like, we know, thanks to what little we have, is that the Praxic Blade is unique to the Praxic Order, and again, the Praxic Blade is our lightsaber equivalent. We actually see at the end of the ViDoc what seems to be one of the Praxic Order fighting against said Dredgen, who, interestingly enough, has their own Praxic Blade in the traditional Sith Red, which is, again, fitting for the Sith analog, and in fairness, the Dredgens being equivalent to the Sith, if you know their lore, actually does make sense, especially if you know what true Sith are like. And I'm talking about the Redskins. I mean, like, the true Sith in general. Like, born and bred Sith.
Yeah, the actual, like, Star Wars original Sith species.
Yeah. Like, not even those Redskins, though, but, like, just in general, like, actual, like, raised Sith, not fallen Jedi. Which, again, you could argue the connection here might be. And this is kind of where I have another spitball theory, because like I said, the Praxic Blades feel like very closely guarded tech of the Praxic Order, and possibly, like we've said, pretty new, possibly. Maybe a result of the Cabal's influence, maybe we'll see. So the fact that the Dredgen has one themselves is interesting. This kind of leads to the possibility of them maybe being an ex-Praxic Order member who I want to, until been proven wrong, cling to this, theory in my head of, as I've said before, the Praxics are very zealotous in their beliefs. Light is good, dark is evil. So I could definitely buy the idea of one of them, through one method or another, kind of learning either the truth of this whole idealism, or just that they become disillusioned, and as a result of this, swing very hard the opposite way. Like I said, they are zealots, so the idea of one of them just becoming disillusioned with the light and going very hard in the other direction feels like something that would happen among them. So the idea of one of them still holding on to
the blade in the story makes sense, but the Jedi have not so much.
Yeah, like I said, that could explain, like I said, why the Praxic Order was chosen. Like I said, they are prone to zealotry, like I keep mentioning. So the idea of one of their own turning on them and becoming the Dredgen here, taking their Praxic Blade with them and turning it red, maybe it always was red, certainly would make sense. And like I said, the narrative director said we'll be poking at their idea of light is good and dark is evil. So, I mean, the whole point of this expansion is that we will be working in the underworld. And we'll be kind of building up our reputation among these different criminal elements. And as a result, this is kind of also where people argue about the creative bankruptcy, because as we kind of get into more of these syndicates, which for time's sake, I won't actually get into because we are at 16 minutes. So I will just kind of say that these syndicates comprise different factions, one of them being a Vex faction, which is... gotten their freedom. I've seen a lot of people joke about the fact that the minute the Vex got their freedom, they put on clothes and did crime, or they started drinking and doing crime.
That's all the Vex do. That's all what all living things do, apparently.
I mean, everyone wears clothes, so that's just the thing.
Yeah,
I mean, the idea
wears clothes and everyone does crime.
Yeah, the Vex just immediately gain their sentience and look around and are like, well, everyone's wearing clothes and everyone does crimes. That must just be what everyone does.
Yes.
It's just funny. I find that part I find funny. Immediately get their sentience, immediately start hitting the bottle. But anyways. Anyways. That's one syndicate. But the idea of us building up our reputation among these syndicates actually gets us certain perks that we can call in these kind of replayable missions. Which feel very... What's the term for Helldivers? What's it called?
They call it an extraction shooter, but it's not as much of an extraction shooter as you think.
Not really, but again,
that's a mission-based shooter, but yeah.
That's a mission of semantics and a whole different kind of worms. But the point is that it has this very extraction shooter vibe that we get going into Renegades, where we have, you go in, you have an objective, you do it, and you literally get out. We literally have a ship we can jump into for a change. That is interesting. We don't just get warped into it.
Hey, we're actually using our ships? What?
Ship combat went? But anyways, it's kind of this idea of us go in, get in the ships, and get out. But as we get, more influence within these syndicates, we'll actually start getting some perks that they provide. For example, the Barret Imperium's offshoot, which is called the... I can't remember what they're called. Something protocol or something like that. Run by Scions. Maybe we'll get the ability to call in one of those AT-ST... AT-AT? The big two-legged tanks that the Imperium has. That Destiny now has the equivalent of. We'll be able to call those in during a mission. Or, maybe we'll be able to call in turrets or, orbital strikes or something like that due to our connections in the underworld. And the overall feel that we're getting with this is that we're not just going after the Barret Imperium with raw power. We need connections in the underworld. Some people are saying that, where is Spider in all of this? He's our big connection to the underworld, which is fair. We actually do see him very, very briefly in the ViDoc, just very briefly. We do know he... Well, at least I'm... Yeah, so he definitely will be there, and my guess is he's actually moving shop to this place, because no oversight. He is a mob boss, after all. But not just no humans, just no oversight in general from the Coalition. So I could definitely see him setting up shop there. In fact, there's actually a bit of lore from one of the ships, either the collector's edition or not the collector's edition, the ultimate edition ship that you get, the one that looks like the X-wing.
Oh yeah.
But also, I think from the season pass, I think they're both the same lore tab. I think they're both the same because they're going to put more lore in possibly the ultimate edition later. But that might just be me spitballing. They're literally called the same thing, have the same lore tab, so that's why I say that. But anyways, that's usually a sign they're going to put more lore in and call it something different later. They're just using it as a placeholder for now. That literally has Spider picking up shop somewhat and going off to this place to set up shop, presumably. So we will presumably be interacting with Spider in this capacity. How much, we don't know. He wasn't one of the named syndicates of the 3 that we're dealing with. So maybe he'll kind of be the middleman negotiator for us. I don't know. Where Spider is concerned, it's always a crapshoot.
It's hard to tell.
I'm definitely willing to bet he's not going to side with the Buried Imperium or against us, because if there's one thing I know about Spider from dealing with him for all these years, he knows the price of what happens to those who go against us.
Yeah, specifically Forsaken.
Yeah.
Specifically Forsaken.
Yeah, he says a lot of, he's not a nice guy, but he also knows...
Don't mess with the Guardian.
Don't mess with the Guardian. That's not a smart bet. So, yeah. I doubt he'll be sent against. Like I said, maybe he'll be a negotiator or maybe more of an introducer. He's like, I have a guy for you. Maybe he'll get us an in with these groups. Who knows? But like I said, it'll be about building up influence and power with these factions to go against the Buried Imperium. How that will actually play out, I'm not entirely sure, but that's kind of the overall theme here. Some people would say that this is kind of a weird thing to do because, like I said, we've been killing gods. So why do we need the help of the underworld all of a sudden?
It's like, we're dealing with an enemy faction. All right, why don't we just fight them? Because we need to work with criminals. Why? Because there's this weapon.
Why?
What?
Why? It's like, okay, cool. Give me a shotgun, a ship, and half an hour.
Just let me have my sword. I got this.
Speaking of swords, going back to the lightsaber, or Praxic Blade, they're called. This actually won't be something we get throughout the story. We will get our own, mind you, that is apparently highly customizable. Interestingly enough, how that will go into, I don't know. Maybe we'll be able to change the blade color, the perks, I don't know.
We'll see.
We'll see, but apparently that's actually coming as part of the dungeon, not actually part of the story, which feels weird. I mean, in the trailer, it literally shows one of the Guardians holding the dang thing, so the fact that that's actually not related to the story itself, but actually part of the dungeon, which, in fairness, could also be related to the story. In the ViDoc, they did say that once you get enough rep with the syndicates, they'll have you go on to this high-tier job, which will be the dungeon, so... I don't know how they'll play that into the story. Maybe the dungeon will be part of the actual campaign. I doubt that, though, because that'll force people to play the dungeon, which not everyone will want to do or even be able to. Because I think you need at least... Actually, hold on. Let me check my Steam thing real quick. Just to see if you actually need the full, premium edition of one of the 2 packs to actually play the actual dungeon. You actually get just Renegades.
I think you need Renegades in order to play it.
Hold on, let me just... Renegades. So if you just play, Renegades, you won't get access to the dungeon. You will need... Actually, no, that is part of the actual standard edition for Renegades. The Renegades campaign plus the dungeon content. So yeah, if you just get basic Renegades, you will get access to the dungeon as well. Much like also Edge of Fate, which also had that as part of the base edition, including the raid. So yeah, you won't need to buy an Ultimate Edition of Renegades to get access to the dungeon. You just need the base edition. You won't get all the extras, but you will at least get the raid, or the dungeon. Same thing with Edge of Fate and the raid, so it's nice, at least. So, yeah, they could make that part of the story. I mean, raids aren't as daunting as or not raids. Dungeons aren't as daunting as the raid, so they could technically have that put in as a story. At least mandatorily complete it once. It wouldn't be too bad. Maybe not. But who knows? So that's kind of where we stand with Renegades. Like I said, it doesn't look too bad. I think, personally, that, like I said, there's some discussion to be had about it being, possibly non-existent, maybe slightly had it not been for the skin sales before. But then again, on the other hand on the other shoe, there's always been comparisons between Destiny and Star Wars in general. Like I said, Force Trance, Storm Trance. Ugh. So I don't know. All in all, I am cautious. I've gone from being wait and see to cautiously optimistic. It looks good. Don't get me wrong. I like Star Wars. I like this. Though I definitely can't blame anyone for saying I just don't want these two things together.
Yeah. No, it's
so yeah. That's kind of where I stand on the matter. What do you think, Justin?
I still have the same stance that I had before, where it's like, all right, we should kind of just wait and see what they do with it. I'm pessimistic when it comes to some of the story beats, admittedly, but gameplay-wise, I guess you can't argue too much about it. I mean, they're obviously reusing a lot of things. That much, it very much feels the case, but I don't know. I'm pessimistic with it. I will see where it goes and go from there. Whether or
One
not
thing
I
will
play
say, I hope you play, but we'll see, right?
We'll see.
One thing I will say that I've heard no one talk about is actually, weirdly enough, if you buy the Ultimate Edition of the Year of Fate, you get these Darkside Legends skin pack, right? Which includes Darth Revan, General Grievous, and Darth Vader, depending on which class you're part of. For some reason, as of Ash and Iron, they've just disappeared from everybody's collection of skins. I've checked myself before the show. That's not anywhere.
Find his Kylo Ren skin.
Yeah, not that I care, because I don't think Kylo Ren is particularly a good Sith as far as Sith go, but that's just me being personal about it. But the fact of the matter is, I paid for that. Where is it? And I've been hearing other people say the same thing, so it's weird. I'd have Justin show you, but he hasn't purchased the Ultimate Edition, so he wouldn't have them to begin with.
But needless to say,
like I said,
if you've purchased Destiny 2 Year of Prophecy Ultimate Edition, you should be getting the Darkside Legends bundle, being a Titan for Darth Vader, General Grievous for a Hunter, and then Darth Revan, or not Revan. It'd be funny if there was Revan, but no. Kylo Ren for the Warlocks. And apparently
for the
those skins
Warlocks
don't exist.
They used to. I had them prior going into this, but for some reason they're gone now, so I don't know. Bungie, fix it?
Bungie, fix your game.
Yeah. I'd like to have my skin for knockoff Revan, I mean Kylo Ren back.
Effort to stop you. Stay sharp.
Would be nice. Anyways. Even if I don't particularly like him. But anyways, that's this week's video. Thought we'd do a follow-up on my opinions and our opinions, I think, collectively on the whole Renegades thing. Like I said, I would argue, pretty cynical going into it, but I was very much hoping to just wait and see. I cautioned everyone to save Final Judgment until we get more confirmations, and here we are with more confirmations. We have a release date of December 2nd, and a whole ViDoc to go with it. All in all, I'm cautiously optimistic. It looks good. It definitely looks like what they promised of it being a, Star Wars story or Destiny story in the... How do I say this? My brain right now is being weird. It definitely feels like a Destiny story within Star Wars kind of aesthetic. That's not bad, right? And there's even possibly some discussion of them wanting to make it more Destiny, but the mouse said, make it more Star Wars. I could see them doing that. Disney is like that. So, I don't know. Maybe this is also Disney's fault for not making it more Destiny than it could be, but that's just me spitballing again. But yeah, like I said, I'm hoping this is good. It looks good, all things considered. Some questionable choices, like I mentioned, with the Praxis, but overall, not bad. I have the Ultimate Edition.
Thrilled.
Not 100% thrilled, but definitely cautiously optimistic,
Yeah.
I'm cautiously optimistic. It looks good. It looks good is what I think I'll say. I have the full Year Prophecy Ultimate Edition, as I mentioned, with the whole skin bit, so I'll be playing it one way or the other, and I'll give you more concrete news when that happens. But yeah, If you want to wonder what Nick's opinion is, it is cautiously optimistic. I don't hate it anymore. Never really did, but I definitely, think it's,
I
better
don't
than
know
it
how
could be,
to
like I said.
feel.
No, I know how to feel. It's better than it could. It's better than it could have been. It could have certainly been worse, and that I'm happy
Things could
about.
have
So
been
yeah,
very, very disastrous.
yeah,
So
it could have
we're
been
thankful
very
for
worse.
that.
Yeah, I'm thankful for that. So yeah, I'll definitely be playing it and see how it is. Like I said, I like Star Wars, but I don't know if I'll like it in this format. I'll have to wait and see. But cautiously optimistic. So yeah, there we are. That's this video. Hope you all enjoyed, and hope you all found it informative. And yeah, let me know down in the comments section what you think. Do you think this is a good move by Bungie? Do you think this is creative bankruptcy? Do you think this is a great idea? What's your overall opinion of Renegades now that the ViDoc is out? Let me know down in the comment section. I'm genuinely curious to hear more of what people have to say on this. And yeah, have a good week, everybody. See you later.
Before we go,
Oh,
I just realized something. We kind of missed a very important key point when it comes to this. While you're going out on missions, people can invade your game.
I wasn't going to bring that up. I was thinking about bringing it up.
I just thought about that, and technically we should bring it up because it actually is a little bit important to bring up.
We're at 31 minutes, so I'll make it quick. People can invade your game.
We don't know how it's going to work, whose games you can invade and stuff like that, but just keep that in mind. Invading is something that can happen. So
yeah, invading can happen in these syndicate missions somehow. It'll be interesting. There's a whole plot line I could mention here involving Drifter and Carbonite, but neither here nor there.
Neither here nor there.
Maybe he's involved, maybe not. But again, that's the thing.
Just keep that in mind. I felt that little bit is important to know, that like there is a case and scenario in which some random person can join your game and try to murk you.
Yeah, so keep that in mind. Maybe you're into that, maybe not. I don't know what to feel about that. That's one of the reasons I didn't mention it, because I'm not sure how to mention that. Like, it feels like a weird thing to bring in.
It's very vague on how it's going to work, so we don't really know what's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's a bit of a vague details at the moment. We just know it can happen, and that in missions there is a possibility of you running into another player.
Hopefully they'll let you know with a modifier saying, "Hey, this will happen." But who knows?
I don't think it'll be a modifier, honestly, because by the sounds of it, right? Like, here's the thing, right? And I'll give you an overview before we leave. This will be a quick thing. The whole point of these missions, right, is that you run these missions for these syndicates to do certain objectives against other syndicates. Possibly against the Barrett Imperium, but those are more likely campaign missions. But in the actual replayable missions themselves, which they mention a lot of replayability to them, you'll be doing these missions for the syndicates against presumably other syndicates, which will gain you status and rep likely, right? So you could definitely have the conversation of, one of the syndicates hiring another guardian to, stop
you
this happening. So, that might be how it works. You might very well possibly have the risk of someone running into your game. We'll see how it works, though. Like I said, it's very vague on how it works right now.
I would have a feeling they're probably not going to go too crazy with it and stop you and like halt your progress with it, but it is something worth noting just in case.
Yeah. Maybe not. We'll see. They did mention that, maybe you'll unalive trying these missions, so maybe you will fail if someone murks you. We'll see. But like I said, as he mentioned, it's worth noting, and yeah, that's fair. So yeah. That's the video. Have a good week. Have a good one, ladies and gentlemen, and hope you all enjoyed. Bye-bye.